Sailesh. Yeah, Jatin, over to you.
Thank you, Deepak ji. A very good evening to all the attendees. I would like to welcome you to this session on hyper-automation in finance and accounting conducted by the Kuwait chapter of ICI. This session will be conducted by Mr. Sailesh Indapurkar, a seasoned professional in digital transformation, outsourcing, process transformation, and transition practice setup. Mr. Sailesh has 18 plus years of experience and has an understanding of robotics process, automation, business process management, process mining, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. He is a senior director with data and digital practice with Protiviti, Middle East, and has provided digital consulting and transformation service to clients in banking, financial services, manufacturing, and retail sectors. Before we start up, let's do a quick check to confirm that we are all on mute. To avoid interruption, questions will be taken up at the end of each section. With that, I invite Mr. Sailesh to take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jatin. A very good evening to all the esteemed members of ICI Kuwait. It's my pleasure to present and share my thoughts on the subject, and would like to thank the entire community, Mr. Deepak ji, for this opportunity. I am fortunate enough to speaking for the second time in front of this audience. Maybe most of you or the new members. It was almost a year back before pandemic. I got the opportunity to present in Qatar chapter. So I'm hopeful that I will be able to share thoughts around this subject, and you will find this useful. So with that, I would share my screen, and then we can get into the discussion. Is it visible?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it is visible. Yeah.
So you can see the screen, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's
Okay.
very clear.
Okay. So see, overall, I think quite aware of overall automation. Automation is nothing new these days. Everybody is talking about, in general, automation and different kind of initiatives which can be taken. And finance becomes one of the probable candidate for implementing automation, has been one of the front runners. So what we will try to cover, and I've tried to kind of keep it simple with how we are seeing the emergence of overall automation. I will touch upon why are we now calling it a hyper automation. Okay, is it just a new term? And then maybe we will also I will try to showcase some of the video samples of what is this technology, how does this apply in some of the use cases, and maybe some followed with some of the use cases as well, and how the approach should be taken when somebody wants to implement some of these use cases in their landscape, how what we call the approach to hyper automation journey can be taken. So that's what the overall agenda for today's conversation is. So see, as I said, mainly that automation is not new. Okay, the way the businesses are expanding across the globe, the competitions between the organization is one of the important aspects, which requires organizations from the over the period of time to deliver more and faster at less amount of time. And it has last, I would say, 3 to 4 decades for multiple technologies to come into the picture. We started in 1970s to 60s around with personal computers. Then emergence of internet happened, and then multiple mobility technologies started coming into the picture. And in last 10 years and now in another 10 to 15 years, we are going to see, or last 10 years, I would say that we have started seeing multiple new technologies playing a role. So what is happening is that the technology, I would not say is taking away the importance of the business, but it's playing a major role in how the business to be driven. That is the reason we have been seeing that how traditional banks have been converted into are being driven extensively by the fintech organizations, how retail organizations, or I would, sorry, telecom organizations are also entering into the space of banking domain, because they are able to, with the amount of data what they have. So it's like the boundaries are fading away, and technology is extensively driving the business, but is also playing a major role in how the organizations can improve their performance, their delivery, the customer satisfaction. So this is the kind of overall, we can see that how technology adoption is extensively increased in last 7 to 10 years. But then when we want to look at specifically that what kind of challenges finance and account professionals would be facing in their current scenarios, okay? Because the businesses, they are expanding, the transaction volumes are increasing. It is kind of overall putting tremendous amount of pressure on the existing finance and accounting function. What we have seen when we did some of the, and we have been speaking to a lot of CFOs and their users and their team members, these are some of the challenges which they typically speak about, and then say that due to a lot of manual entry, our data is prone to errors and inconsistencies. Because just for example, like earlier, if the bank, or sorry, if the organization had one channel of doing services, and if they add new digital channels, let's say they have added mobile, they have added internet, they have added Facebook. Now, all these are different kind of channels through which the business can be performed, which ultimately increases the number of transactions which can be done. It increases the possibility of fraud. It also increases the compliance requirements. So ultimately, the finance and account departments is in a way, their capacity is not increasing, but then their volume and transactions are extensively increasing, which creates perform a lot of processes manually, although systems are in there. However, the transactions are increasing. So the rate at which transactions are increasing, maybe the systems are not able to cope up with that, which again puts the burden on the existing staff. As I said, there have challenges to grow the current team, and then because of which they're not able to manage the large transactions. And team members constantly say that they are involved in a lot of transactional activities, voluminous transactional activities, in which the last 10 to 15 days of the month constantly goes into either doing reconciliations, data entry, getting data from multiple departments, collating it, and then having multiple discussion, review, analysis. So it's like the time goes only into that. They're not able to sit and actually work with CEOs or CXOs in providing more value-added services. So these are some of the challenges I believe you also would be seeing in your existing environment, because of, as we said, the challenges what we face. Some of the, when we perform these analysis and surveys, what was our typical observation on what kind of transactional activities which are there? As I said, there were too many manual and time-consuming transactions. As we earlier said, that over the period of time, organizations started spending in a lot of different systems and ERPs, multiple applications, which actually created multiple systems within the organization, different instances of the ERPs. It actually created more complexity because at the end of the day, still the department had to work in different systems, extract data from multiple systems. So moving data across too many systems was also observed to be one of the important challenges. So if you look at it, these are some of the important challenges, which is like they still have to close the month-end closing challenges are there. Approvals are lengthy. Okay, staff lack important skills due to insufficient training. Now, this has been constantly, when I speak to a lot of CFOs, they say that our staff is extensively involved in from day 1 to 30th of every month. And again, the next month comes in, that we are not able to upskill our staff. We're not able to send them even for the training as within the organizations. Dissatisfaction and tremendous amount of effort because they're always involved in doing, performing a lot of day-to-day activities. So, as we said, a wide range of activities from collecting basic data to making complex decisions and advising business leaders as well. But then organizations are increasingly turning to, now that is where we will try to enter into subject of hyper automation or intelligent process automation. See, automation, as I said earlier, is not a new subject. Okay, it has been going on, and maybe most of you have also recently either adopted robotics process automation or RPA or OC other technologies. But then in hyper automation, what is that is being currently done is that how multiple emerging technologies along with existing ERPs and with business process improvement, how the business efficiencies process in which there is a process improvement which can be identified along with RPA, along with BI analytics, and overall process can be improved and which will help us to reduce the turnaround time and other challenges. So that is where hyper automation, which actually talks about bringing multiple technologies together to achieve the business transformation. So I will kind of just take you through some more points related to what are the typical technologies which we are seeing are playing a good role in overall hyper automation. As I said earlier, maybe most of you would be aware also of robotic process automation, because that is one of the important adopted extensively by finance professionals in the finance department as well. Along with that, we also see intelligent document processing. And I will take you through one by one, just to kind of give brief overview of what these technologies are. So robotic process, this actually sits over and above existing ERPs or existing applications. And it helps to automate the activities which are currently done outside of your ERP systems. Specifically, tremendous amount of manual activities. Either you are extracting data from multiple systems, either you are performing reconciliations, calculations, you are using multiple screens, either from ERP or from other applications, data extraction, updation, manipulation. Robotics process automation plays a very good role into that. This primarily is useful for the processes which are mainly rule-based in nature, okay, which are where individual does not have to perform specifically judgment or other activities. It is extensively rule-based in nature. So that is where that's why we call it robotic, which is there and it can be done. Then another combination which is used is intelligent document processing, which is nothing but then you would have heard about extracting data or information from unstructured documents. Now we have seen that there is a good amount of effort which is spent by departments in extracting data from unstructured documents. Unstructured documents are nothing but then either you are working on invoices, you're working on contract documents, you're working on the information which is not in a structured format. Okay, a good example in which data is extensively extracted from invoices, and then you make an entry into your ERP systems. But then there is a person who's sitting and doing invoice processing, which actually kind of creates a overall takes a long amount of time. And then others also come into the picture wherein machine learning, business process management, and process mining as well. Business process management or workflow solutions or form building is actually now turning out to be another very good solution. It was always there. It is not that it's new. However, when ERP solutions are not able to either they take long time in creating forms or workflows, that is where now low code and no code solutions which have recently come up in the last 4 to 5 years, which are playing a very good role in developing quick applications. So you are able to create quick forms, you're able to create workflows, you can have segregation of duties created, and quick workflows can be created, which will help to ensure that there is a governance and interaction which can happen among multiple teams. So that earlier, if there were if they were sharing information, is that possible to be done by using these workflows? And that's where BPM solution comes in. So these are some of the examples. I have just given some of them, but then there could be multiple of such technologies which can be bringing together, okay, to achieve the business objectives. So as I said, that how it kind of sits together, your core ERP or your old traditional applications are continued to be there. We are not talking about any of these technologies are either replacing your existing solutions. No, they are adding on top of it. Okay, so now the important question comes in that how should we decide what to be used? And that's where that assessment to be performed, which kind of helps us to identify that in which kind of business problems, whether we should use RPA or BPM or machine learning or combination of these. But this is overall, and even integration solutions are also there, which will help to, if the systems are not talking to each other, how at the API level integration can be performed to achieve the benefits. So what I was trying to earlier also trying to say that one of the solutions which I mentioned earlier, which is process mining, okay, which is helping extensively about existing processes, how they are performing, what kind of anomalies, what kind of issues which are observed in the current process. Sometimes, if we have to see that what are the bottlenecks, what are the issues in our current processes, either with business users or observing how they are performing the process. But if there could be a way wherein through the audit trail or through the timestamp of the process being performed within the system, across the systems, if that can be extracted, and with that entire process flow can be created. If that happens, that is going to be one of the very important aspects, and that is where process mining solutions are helping in doing that. This becomes a very good solution for understanding whether, as I said earlier, if there are any issues, anomalies which are observed within the entire landscape of your processes, it can be done. The only factor which is important for such solutions is requirement of data availability. You can only monitor and observe the processes which are currently being performed within the system. If the activities which are performed outside of the systems, those obviously needs to be done with the help of interview sessions. However, we have seen extensive adoption within procure to pay, order to cash, which are typically 80 to 90% being performed within the systems across the globe. So this becomes one of a very good entry point for when the process discovery is concerned. You see, when we perform the process discovery to identify the challenges, bottlenecks, it actually feeds into the information which helps us to either automate the process by using robotics process automation solution, or using BPM or IDP or chatbot or any other analytics solution. So overall, this is how it helps to achieve the benefits which could be related to cost, turnaround time, error reduction, uh, governance and control in our entire process landscape. This is how we can use multiple technologies, multiple different solutions to achieve the business objectives. That is what the important aspect is, what is needed. Now, you would have also heard about main aspects which is related to digital transformation as one of the term which has been extensively used these days across the organizations, wherein businesses would like to transform themselves. However, when they call it a transformation, they do understand that technology is going to play a major role, and that's where the digital transformation as a term has been coined and has come up, and it's been extensively used these days. However, what we have seen that automation becomes one of the major solution within digital transformation. So, and in that, as I mentioned earlier, RPA is one of the solution which kind of is helping, almost is expected that we'll be able to automate almost around 25 to 30% of activities within finance over the period of time, because that is the volume which is volume of transactional activities currently being done. This is how we are seeing that overall hyper automation will help in the digital transformation journey as well. So when we look at the adoption trends in overall hyper automation, what are we seeing currently in the market? What kind of trends are being observed? So as I said, from individual processes to workflow, that is where we are seeing that how a streamlined, frictionless experience is being observed, wherein how process which is actually happening within the departments, within different departments, how it can seamlessly flow within them by using different technologies, either workflow, mobile, RP, a combination of these technologies are helping to. Another objective is like we have seen with the digital workers becoming a perfect colleagues. When I say digital workers, and that's where it's just a term, but then we are observing that people are learning to work with multiple technologies. Okay, they are getting upskilled. They are using multiple technologies. So there is a coordination between technologies and humans is increasing. Citizen developers is becoming another very important aspect. As I said earlier, low code and no code solutions are coming up, which are actually helping different business users. So it is no more that technology can only be designed and developed by IT or IT professionals. Now, because BPM solutions, low code and no code solutions have come up, which actually can be directly adopted by the business users as well. So we have seen where business teams are redesigning their processes, they are documenting the processes, and they are also up to some level automating and digitizing the processes as well. There's a good amount of, and as I said earlier, because these changes are happening extensively because the technology adoption is at very high pace, the skill availability is not at that pace, and that is where this gap can be bridged in, wherein some activities can be automated and some activities which are business users are also going out of their usual way of working and adopt and learning new technologies to ultimately transform their way of working. Now, what I will do is that I will, as we discuss about some of the use cases, I will show you some videos around these technologies, which will help you to understand what is that we're talking about. Okay. So let me show you first a simple bank reconciliation video demo, which will kind of help you to first understand that how it is currently being done with normal RPA process. Can you see the screen?
This demo is regarding bank reconciliation. The client was one of the largest garment manufacturers in India. They were performing manual bank reconciliation against the general ledger, which was taking a lot of time, ranging from 2 hours to 2 days. The quality of the reconciliation report generated manually were not adequate or accurate. Protiviti has developed a bank reconciliation bot which processes bank statements and general ledger data and reconcile the transaction based on transaction date, amount of transaction, transaction type, which is debit or credit. Reports are generated for both matched and unmatched transactions. The solution was developed using UiPath. It took 1.5 weeks to understand the process and design the solution, and 1.5 weeks to develop, test, and deploy the bot. Now I am going to demonstrate the robot in action. This is a robot which I am going to run. Before running the robot, this is the configuration file where we have to set the path for the bank statement, general ledger statement, the report template, and this is the path for the output folder where our final report will get generated during the runtime. Let me show you the bank statement. This is the bank statement and it has all the data. This is the general ledger statement with all the data, and this is the output folder. Currently there are no report file present over here. That will be generated during the runtime only. Let me run the robot. I have clicked on run, and now the robot has started working. As you can see, it is opening the general ledger file. It is extracting data one by one. It is searching the summary, the amount, the total amount, description, everything. Now it is running at the background. If I open the output folder, you will see that there's a report named reconciliation report. At the background, what it is happening is it is comparing the data between the bank statement and the general ledger statement, and whatever the statement which has been reconciled, it is there in the report folder, and those things which is unreconciled, it is there in the folder. As you can see, the report is getting updated from time to time, and very soon this process will get completed. So the process is complete now. If we take a look, it took around 56 seconds to complete the entire process. If I go ahead and see the report, this is the report under the output folder. If I open this report, I will find that there's a tab named reconcile records, which has all the reconciled records present over here. As you can see, the date is matching, the amount is matching. In a similar fashion, all other records are matching as well. There are certain other tabs you can see, like reconcile bank statement credit decimal whole. What it is saying is robot has converted decimal number to the nearest whole number. That means this tab is saying bank statement credit decimal whole. That means the credit column, it has many decimal values as well. The robot has converted those decimal values to the nearest whole number, and then it has checked against the general ledger. Those which has matched, it is showing in the reconcile bank statement credit decimal whole. In a similar fashion, there are other tabs as well. There are other reconcile tab as well. For example, this is unreconciled bank statement credit. That means these are the bank statement credit part which doesn't match with the general ledger debit column.
Okay. I hope I'm audible. I was told that there were some issues technically.
You're audible.
Okay. Okay, so let me, the video which I showcased, that was just to give you kind of a view of how the robotics process automation, one of the solution which is playing a major role in hyper automation is kind of looks like, and how does it work in helping automating transactional activities and bank reconciliation turns out to be one of them. I will also take you through another example wherein it is a combination of OCR technology and RPA, which is optical character recognition, which I mentioned earlier, IDP technology to extract data from the invoices.
In this video, you'll see how a UiPath robot works to input data from an invoice into SAP. The robot will open the MPO invoices folder in Outlook. It will open the email and download the invoice, which is a standard readable PDF file. The robot will go on to open the PDF in the background and extract the relevant information: company name, invoice date, invoice reference number, description, taxable amount, tax rate, total amount, and contact information. Let's run the workflow in the debug mode so we can see the details of how the robot is performing the work. The debug mode is a very slow mode so we can see what happens step by step. On the left-hand side, we have the UiPath Studio running the robot, highlighting the activities being executed and listed in the output pane. At first, the robot will open up the email, save the attached invoice, and it will extract the needed information. Now, the robot looks inside the folder, gets the PDF file, and reads the text from the PDF. Now the robot goes on to extract the information from the file, the reference number, the invoice date, and so on. The robot is also performing some basic data conversion and format changes so that the input in SAP is valid. As you can see in Highlight and in the output pane, the robot extracts the amount, the taxable amount, the tax rate, the full name of the person, the description, and also the company name. Extracting the data from the PDF is done. Now the robot opens the SAP application and logs in using the username and the password, which is encrypted. After logging into SAP, the robot searches if the vendor exists by going to the Vendors tab, typing the vendor's name and checking if there's an entry for this vendor in SAP. In this case, the vendor is already registered in the system, so the robot clicks OK and fills in the company code. Then it selects all information and clicks OK. Now the robot goes back twice. It then types FB60, the code for entering incoming invoices in SAP. Now, in entering vendor invoice pane, the robot selects the vendor by its name and starts inputting the data extracted from the PDF. When watching this, you have to remember that this is done in debug slow mode. The actual robot is much faster, depending on the application loading speed. In the background mode, when working with PDFs or Excel applications, the robot does data extraction and processing almost instantly. Finally, the robot clicks on Simulate and then on Complete to park the invoice in SAP, and the SAP job is done. You can see in the output pane that the robot goes back to Outlook and sends an email confirming that the invoice was processed correctly. This is an optional step. As you can see, the robot also moved the email containing the invoice from the NPO Invoices folder to the Processed folder. The robot is now ready to fetch another email from the NPO Invoices folder and start
Okay. So I think that would have given you kind of good idea about how different technologies are kind of playing a role in ultimately achieving the business objectives. So business objectives were, you saw that there were activities, multiple transactional activities performed in both the use cases, either extracting information from Excels, interaction with the email, extracting and information from invoices, multiple monotonous repetitive activities. So as I said earlier, these were some of the RPA and OCR use cases. I will now take you through some of the use cases in which now we are seeing, and we have recently worked on these as well, wherein how Microsoft stacks. Now, recently, Microsoft has also come up with in their Microsoft 360 stack. There is earlier Power BI was always there. Now they have come up with automation capabilities, which is about robotics process automation capability plus application development capability. And again, as I said, with the same features of low-code features. So it kind of makes more easier for organizations to now develop this in-house with limited support from external outsourcing service providers for technology or for IT as well. So this is one of the example of how a deal sheet for one of our clients who is mainly into a UAE-based client. They are into ammonia and urea business, wherein they work on some of the deal sheets which are to be provided to their marketing team. But what happens is that this particular sheet gets created and handed over into multiple departments. So like it gets created with commercial team and finance team, and then it goes to operations teams, and it is the same sheet is flowing and exchanging hands in different teams over the email, and it is either sometimes version control is followed, sometimes not followed, and that was one of the major challenge of customer, wherein they were not able to see if there were human errors happening, who has changed it, and what date it has been changed. So there were tremendous amount of issues which they were facing. And it was turning out to be a laborious process and time consuming. So that is where we came into picture. We help client in converting these sheets into a forms, workflow forms, wherein most of the information which they want to be entered by users, we created a control in those fields. We created ensure that if it is a numeric field, alphanumeric details cannot be entered. We created controls in that. And if you ask me, somebody will say, why did we have to create forms? Why did not do it in Excel? But that was the initial objective. But Excel's over the period of time, extensive amount of data maintaining in them becomes a problem. And then also version control. So we are talking about why not to use application workflow in which we can ensure that data is entered by multiple teams and there is a handoff also is happening. So it works like the application. And that's where we created multiple screens. And the kind of benefits which they saw was extensive. The solution is a synchronized business process, which automatically pulls data from their existing systems and automates the deal sheet workflow. So overall workflow, which used to happen in the email, now it has been entirely automated. You can call it as a centralized tool, which was created, including there is a audit trail, there's a version control, there is a timestamp, everything is can be looked into it. So if some auditors want to look at it at when data was changed, it can be looked into it. Approval flow and feedback was also provided. So wherever any comments needs to be done, approval needs to be provided, all that is done. So as I said, we used Power App as a solution, which is provided by Microsoft. And then we brought in, I would say this was more to bring in the governance in the process, along with reducing errors. And also there was a bit of automation which came into the picture, because we also created SLAs. Earlier, there were no, even if there was SLAs, but there was no alerts, there was no reminders which could have been set. Now with this, we are able to do that. A simple, small activity which is important for the departments, but it used to take a long time. We were able to kind of automate by using these technologies. Then coming to something similar, another Microsoft-based Power Automate. Now, this is, as I said earlier, RPA solution provided by Microsoft in their suite. A simple process, which is intercompany reconciliation, which is performed within the multiple organizations, within the organization, multiple companies, and how they were able to kind of do this by using Microsoft Power Automate. The benefits were extensive, almost reduced human involvement effort by 80%. Accuracy of reconciliation increased, reduced the lead time to review and close out intercompany debts between the organization almost by 50%. As I said earlier, overall process governance got improved. So these were some of the benefits which they actually observed after they automated by using Microsoft Power Automate solution. And then some more use cases which were like related to contracts, boards processing, again by using Power Apps solution, wherein how the information from multiple departments which is coming in, how they were able to bring in that information by using these tools. This is another one of the use cases in which we actually, which is mainly for the accruals process. Okay, and over here, a client used to spend tremendous amount of time, almost 15 to 20 days in completing their accruals, which used to start in the manual process. It used to start with sending accrual sheet to each and every department, because we have to go and get the information about how much the accruals they used to send it to each department, and then consolidate the updated information which has been received, consolidate, bring it back into one report. Sometimes used to have a lot of errors and issues which used to happen. And then reconciliation to be performed, upload that into the JV. All this, if you see, end-to-end process, starting from getting the information, uploading the JV, again sending the information back to departments, sending the reports, everything end-to-end was to be done manually. What we did is that we use over here not only Power Automate, but we also utilize business intelligence, okay, which is dashboards and data visualization. So at the initial stage, information can be extracted from the Oracle database, which can be performed, manipulated by using Power Automate, prepare the prepaid sheet, and then retrieve consolidated updated form in database. That's where we use the forms to extract the information and get the information from different users. Yeah. I think so someone has a question. Okay, I will go ahead. Maybe, is it in the chat window?
Yeah, if anyone has a question, they can unmute them and themselves and can ask.
Yeah, by mistake, I think you can continue.
Okay. Okay, fine. So as I said, over here, if you look at it, the end-to-end process is automated. However, not only automation, we also work with client in providing them a data visualization as well, wherein they are able to see and which are the accruals which are aging, what is the aging of that, utilization of those accruals, movement. So different other reporting. It does not mean that they were not doing, but we were able to give end-to-end solution in which multiple different technologies are being used. So the objective was to help them reduce their time from 22 days, which we are anticipating that it will come down once solution is deployed. This is under development right now. Would be able to reduce at least to 12 days, which is still a good amount of time reduction for them. Again, another example of bringing in process governance and control, decrease the time to consolidate data, and enhance the digital maturity of the organization. As I said, the objective was to achieve the business business benefits and resolve the business problems. So if we also want to kind of look at that, how these are some of the examples. You saw that the technologies, and then I showed you some of the videos. I showed you some of the new technologies with low code and no code as well. Trying to keep examples specific to your areas. But then in this pandemic, we have observed that there is a good amount of adoption happening across the globe in the CFO's offices as well. So automate manual tasks such as, and these are some of the examples which you can take it back, like such as journals, accruals, intercompany we saw, and mainly reconciliations, balance sheet certification becomes one of the very good examples. Another adoption which is happening is that there is a positive responses to going on the cloud as well. Earlier, before pandemic, we saw that there was tremendous amount of rejection towards even talking about cloud. But now in the region, we have done some implementations where within the finance department as well, where they are open for cloud solutions as well. Moving away from paperless and trying to digitize, okay, that is very important. How we can document the process, use technology to monitor as well, which is like, can we have initiatives done within our process to avoid the paper, to make it more digitized, create forms, create applications so that it becomes faster and there is a good governance. Okay. And then deploy self-service capabilities as well. So what are, if you have to look at it, some of the typical functions, I would say, within the finance are, we have observed order to cash, and obviously P2P becomes one of the very good candidates. Nevertheless, you know the reasons behind that, the kind of transactional activities which have been done. So those are, if someone wants to look at it within the organization, those becomes one of the very good candidate to start looking at from where to start with. However, having said that, even FP&A has been observed because, as I said, and getting the information starting from financial business case related details, and then validating that information within the departments, reviewing it, getting approvals, those becomes a very good candidate. Like FP&A becomes a good candidate for the BPM and low code kind of solutions. So this is how you can have more technologies to be used. Some more use cases across the business functions, from supply chain to audit, even in HR and finance, starting from inventory management to work order management, vendor setup, vendor updation, vendor creation in supply chain, and then in audit compliance reporting, identifying open items. These are quite a lot of use cases which are extensively being adopted within the organizations for doing automation. I think you might have understood the benefits by seeing the videos, but just to highlight some of them, it kind of faster processing and turnaround time. We have seen extensive amount of benefits being delivered to clients where processes which are used to do, used to take maybe like 5 to 6 hours have come down to either minutes or half an hour to kind of a time. It all depends on what kind of automation potential, but then tremendous amount of time reduction which happens because the way these technologies can work 24/7 will have limited or no errors, virtually no errors when it comes to RPA. When we are using machine learning, other technologies, there is human intervention which is needed. It gives good amount of tremendous amount of time for teams to kind of focus on their value adding activities. They can be involved in more decision making, they can involved in more strategic discussions than performing transactional activities. So these are some of the important benefits which have been seen by our clients who have adopted these technologies. But then also what we see becomes a deterrent sometimes that adoption is less. Why we still see adoption? Because some of the misconceptions which also play a role, which is very important to kind of keep in mind that it is ultimately keeping you away from the benefits for your own career. So automation will replace human. It has never, and it will never also in the future. We have seen in the past when we thought that ERP systems will come and they will take away jobs. It is not like that. It is still there. Still, you are seeing that you are spending 14 to 15 hours a day in office, so it has not taken, and these technologies will not. Because as I said, the demand will continue to increase, the transactions will increase, the more channels of sales will increase, it will kind of increase more volume for everyone to work in the organization. It just we need to decide what we want to do and what we do not want to do. So what we do not want to do, we should get it done through machines. That is very important for us to accept that. Typically, typically I have seen a lot of times people coming and asking this question, oh, this technology will not work in my process, in our processes. It is not that way. In any kind of environment, wherever these kind of transactional activities being performed, automation has a huge potential. Yes, I do agree whether what kind of underlying systems and technologies currently you have, the percentage of automation depends on that as well. However, processes does not have anything specific to automation because it just looks at the activity and then tries to look at the solution. 100% automation is we all agree that not possible. Human in the loop is very important, very required, and it is advisable, at least in the processes or the technologies which are new, like machine learning and others, where validation is needed. However, we have observed that standard operating procedures or the solutions which are purely rule-based, over the period of time, we are able to deploy 100% automation. So these are some of the important aspects before I get into the last point of today's session, which is related to that how should we go about it? How the organizations can go about overall adopting hyper automation or any kind of automation. Some of the important aspects are we need to have a clear vision. Okay, like as you observed, I initially showcased you some of the use cases. Ultimately, these use cases will help to resolve your business problem. Technology is just an enabler. You need to have, if you are part of P2P, O2C, you need to have a simple vision. What is that we want to achieve? Do you have a specific agenda to achieve? Just do not go and automate for the sake of it. Otherwise, you will be picking up some wrong solution, wrong processes. You will be picking up processes which are after automation may not be delivering to benefit. So either you want to reduce your Like if you're in P2P, you want to reduce your spend. If you are in O2C, you want to improve your accounts receivable and improve your, reduce your revenue leakage. So have these objectives and align them to the vision. That is very important. Have a balance, not enough focus on high impact use cases. And that's what is like, these 2 points are important and correlated. There was a time when organizations were extensively only automating just for sake of it, because it was in their KRA, it was in their KPI. Everyone was given KPI that they should be automating something. But now we have reached a stage where we should be looking at the business benefits, what the benefits we want to achieve. So look at the use cases within your process environment, which is going to deliver you, which is going to deliver the high impact. Coordination with IT is extensively important for a successful journey. Even if it is a low-code solution, even if it is a less complicated technology, integration with your IT and working along with them is very important, because you never know that the technology which you want to deploy, it might be already available within the organization. So it's always advisable to consult, work with them, and then go ahead with that. And last but not the last and most important, employee resistance to change. We all will have to accept this fact that the business processes and technology gap is extensively reducing. Over the period of time, the roles also will newly get created. So it is advisable to adopt the technology as early as possible. And that's where see that how you can be a change within your identify the opportunities within your own process areas at the earliest. Now, before I end, like how do we go about this? And that's what, like initially I was mentioning, that have the KPIs in mind when you start doing this exercise, whether cost optimization is important. You want to improve customer experience, improve process metrics, enhance digitization. You might have objective to even or KPI to achieve and enhance a digitization. So what is the objective which you want to achieve? On the basis of that objective, there is a landscape assessment which is important to be done. When I say landscape assessment, which means your business processes to be looked into and understand what kind of processes are ready for automation or digitization or transformation. The processes which requires good amount of process improvement should not be taken up. Otherwise, you will have a failed project or failed automation attempt. That's where process improvement and re-engineering plays a very, very important role. Okay, it is not as it is process to be picked up. Everywhere where we have done automation, recommend our clients to do the process re-engineering and then try to use multiple technologies ultimately to achieve the outcomes, which could be either related to efficiency, cost optimization, or improved compliance or reduced human error. So that was overall which I wanted to kind of cover today. I'm happy to take your questions.
Andalip, you can take over.
Thank you, Deepak ji. In case anyone has any questions, y'all can put it in the chat box or raise their hands. Otherwise, we will close the session.
I have a question to Mr. Sailesh. This is
Yes,
Ankush.
please.
Hi, Silesh. With respect to, RPA, right? You mentioned about UiPath. How do you decide that, UiPath is the right solution for any specific problem? So, if you can explain, end-to-end journey, like, how did you kind of discovery to the, because in our organization, we have many cases where, we are thinking of automation, but how do I decide that UiPath is the right way to go?
Okay. Yeah. So see, see, the first thing, as I said initially, okay, when let's say your objective is to enhance automation and digitization, or adopting the automation journey. That is the objective, which means you have been given a mandate that let's try to identify the opportunities and ensure that we have our processes are automated. See, as I said earlier, the first step is what needs to be done and performed is identifying good set of processes for automation. Because see, this transformation journey does not stop at one or two processes. It is a continuous exercise. Earlier, you remember business excellence teams in all the organizations are still there and will be there. Earlier, they used to do improvement of processes by using Lean Six Sigma initiatives. Now it is being done by using technology. So first of all, it is identifying processes is a continuous exercise and it needs to be done iteratively. Now, that is the first step to be done. It also helps you to understand whether what kind of technology, okay, and that's where I would take you to this slide, which is initially I showcased, is what kind of technology is required to be used. Not necessarily once you do the discovery and you identify that what is the problem statement which we have to resolve, RPA is the only solution. It could be multiple. You might need BPM, you might need to resolve that problem by using AI, machine learning. So multiple technologies would play a role. So that is the next step, that for what kind of business process, in one process, what multiple technologies or maybe one technology is required to be done. Now, some organizations are thinking that, okay, initially, because RPA is the solution which is extensively giving tremendous amount of benefits, and which is a fact, why not to only start with RPA, which is also fine. Then the step comes in, what tool of RPA should be used. When we showcased the UiPath, that was only the video. It does not mean that RPA can be done only by UiPath. As I explained to you, there are multiple tools available in the market. They does a very good and decent job. If you have to perform this assessment in-house, you can refer to Gartner's quadrant. These reports are publicly available. Otherwise, you can also conduct a formal tool selection exercise. But these days, top 3 to 4 tools are playing an extensive major role, which includes UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere. And now, as I said, there are a lot of BPM solutions which are also coming up with RPA capabilities. So multiple options are there. Either you can go ahead as per the Gartner's quadrant, or you can perform this study in-house with your help of your IT team, and then select the tool. After the tool is selected, then comes, you have already selected the processes. Now tool is identified, and that is where the overall implementation plan to be developed for automation of these processes. Okay. Either you can take support from external parties or partners or implementation partners like us or others who have the skills and capability of doing automation, or you can think of developing in-house team as well. So it all depends. It's a long journey, and I do not want to scare you by that. But as I said, long journey, which I mean to say that it has a potential to automate the entire landscape. In finance, HR, IT, everywhere, extensive amount of automations can be done. We have clients who have been doing this for almost 2 to 3 years now, and they have a big practice within their environment with 20, depending on the size of the organization, they are doing it. So step-by-step process, identify opportunities, select the tool, build a business case, have an implementation roadmap, and start developing it by taking external help or developing in-house team. But it has to be done with proper business case and ROI in mind. Do not start or close the program only by doing 3 to 4 automations. There is a huge potential across the landscape. So have a long journey.
Thanks a lot for that.
Do we have any other questions? We'll have the vote of thanks now. So thank you, Mr. Shailesh. On behalf of ICAI Kuwait chapter, I would like to extend my thanks for conducting such a pertinent and helpful session, introducing us to what exactly is hyper-automation, its trends in finance and accounts, and its various use cases. I would also like to thank everyone for attending and making this session successful. Your active and continued participation is a great motivator for us. And finally, I would like to thank our annual sponsors, Oracle, Almula Exchange, Mughal Mahal, and NBK. Thank you all and have a good evening. Thank you, Shailesh ji. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh ji. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.